So Chriswell is supposed to be here for emergency procedures. She's gonna send out an email. On the email, it's going to have what we're gonna do. We got a new emergency coordinator, for any of the plans we have. And she's very sweet. She's next door. And she asked me to be on the committee too, so if you guys ever have any problems or any concerns,
So we're changing how we do it?
we will be changing it. So
Did
she's
she,
gonna,
We got an email that there's gonna be like a school-wide evacuation drill, is that gonna be on that?
yeah, so she's gonna email what we're gonna do for the school-wide, for the campus and all of that, before they actually have it. This group, all the new teachers will meet again, so we can discuss it and do it the right way.
Okay.
Cause you guys have never done it, where other teachers have at least done something. And then I'll meet with her as well on what she wants to inform you guys of. But Chris will send that out to everybody, then she'll get with me, and then I'll get with you guys. Good to go. But she couldn't be here today because it's Scott show. How is classroom management going for everybody since we got back? How are your students, Dave?
All the bad ones are gone.
All the bad ones are
They
gone.
did-
The
they did
real
some
bad
bad
ones are gone, yeah.
Sign it and everything is right there.
There's no bad ones, there's just happy little challenges.
I actually thought that is, like, probably my most challenging class is somehow gotten a little bit more even keeled. I mean, they're still disruptive, but
So what tends to happen is they come back refreshed and they maybe made the New Year's goal if they're gonna be a brand new student.
yeah.
And then around this time is when they start, getting back into their old characters. So the biggest thing is making sure whatever rule you put in place, implement it. I know Ms. Clark, the first day, that's all she did, is go over the classroom rules over and over. Because they've been saints since we got back because they're refreshed, but those tired, crazy kids have been.
The hardest class would be the 8th period class, and they had a lot of issues between Thanksgiving and Christmas. That class in particular, there were a lot of bad problems going on. And then when they came back, like the first day, they seemed to just let it all out, and then second day onward, peace.
So they were like, one last go, I'm about to activate.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's
just
kind of
make
weird
sure.
how it happened.
And then hallway passes, if you don't have an actual pass, especially yesterday working in the hallway in the high school, if you don't have an actual pass, make sure you're writing it in that email, on that pass list. Because there's a lot of students in the hallway and we don't know what they're in the hallway for, we have to go ask them, and a lot of times they're lying. And then with passes, do not allow kids to go to another class for any reason. If they say they have a project, they need so-and-so, there's too many teachers allowing kids to go from class to class. So if the teacher didn't write you or tell you that they need the student, don't let them out.
Okay.
Cause they're really just in the hallway hanging out.
But we can still request.
Yeah, absolutely. You can request as long as you're talking directly to the teacher.
No, don't just leave it on the student.
Yes, like yesterday I had a sticky note from a coach and it said to add. And that was it. And there was 2 kids and I said, okay, whose name is on the pass? And they said both of ours. And I was like, let me see the pass. And there was no name on it. So I went and asked the teacher and he was like, yeah, just let them go to add. No, we can't do that. Cause they never even went to add.
Fenric brought that up in our last PE meeting too. She said that there was a lot of, on our side of the building too, a lot of kids saying that they're going into another class for a project and there wasn't actually a project.
And it's and overuse of restrooms. If you have certain students, Adolfo, Jose, sometimes Damien, if you know they're trouble kids, they are not going into the bathroom. They are just meeting other kids at that time, especially the first 5 and last 5 minutes of class. So Adolfo, Jeremiah, Emily.
Can middle school send out an email to teachers, any kids coming from PE, do not need to use the bathroom, because they have the bathroom out there for class.
Yeah, so the middle school has a policy of first 15 minutes and last 15 minutes cannot go to the restroom at all. So they have plenty, it's 4-minute class periods, the campus is tiny at the junior high. They should be able to use the restroom and get to class. And then there's teacher discretion in that middle 15. So, but yeah, for first 15 minutes and last 15 minutes, they should not go at all.
And that's the same rule at the high school, but especially with those kids that are getting in a lot of trouble. Do you have anything else with classroom management?
I just wanna know like what's challenging when you say what's going on. Just far as,
Well, we
and what have you, what's kind of remediation have you tried? Just to help out.
I mean, it's just a lot of like inappropriate language, outbursts, things like that, or not outbursts, but you know, just conversations continuing, and honestly, like I said, even with my worst class, they're easily redirected.
Right.
It just has to happen more than it does my other classes. It's,
So what are some things like seating charts, did you
Yeah,
go, do you have
during the
social
seating
contracts, all that stuff, did you go over all that stuff?
yeah, I have like, cause I'm in the lecture hall, it's kind of a difficult space
It is,
to, and they are, but you know, that's room echoes.
Yeah.
They can literally talk in a normal volume to somebody across the room, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just, it's an interesting thing, but for me, I'm lucky I can, you know, get them up and moving and, you know,
Right.
redirect them that way.
that'd be my biggest piece of advice is just keep it busy, keep it so busy, they don't have
Yes.
time.
From bell to
To-
bell.
Yes.
Like, they walk in, they have something to do, you give your instruction, you get them stations, you get them moving. They always have something to do so that they don't have time. And the ones that aren't gonna do it, they stick out so much that then you can, you know who it is, but, just keep them so busy, keep your routines just constant, like every day. Like for me, Mondays vocabulary, they know they're gonna come in, they're gonna do their foldables, and they're rolling, like it's not, I try not to change everything day to day, so that way they know, and it's just boom, 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 boom.
More structured,
Routines,
better.
routines, procedures, all the time. And that should help a little bit. And then, of course, if you need to adjust seating charts, you need to do whatever you need to do, but, I say just plan so that they're busy. Plan that they're so they're busy.
How is cell phones going in the high school classes? The cell phones. Are you taking them up? Like, what's your cell phone procedure?
I have since we came back, cause I agree with Ruben, the time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, even in my best classes, it's just like, oh gosh, you know what I mean? And especially those last few days, I'll be honest, I was just like, just gotta get to the end, you know what I mean? But since we've come back in, again, my ninth grade, which is my struggle group, I just had to get one warning, and then I picked up the first phone, and it hasn't really been much of an issue since.
The best advice I can give is if you take them at the beginning, you don't have to worry about them until the end. I went to Walmart and got one of those shoe rack, the hang shoe things. It has 30 slots. I know who has a phone and who doesn't have a phone in every period. They walk in, they put their phone. So as I do roll, if I have 16 kids here, maybe 2 of them don't have phones, I should have 14 phones. And it's a quick check, it makes life easy, but then my entire period, I don't have to worry about a cell phone, because I know where they all are. They're right like near my desk, I don't have to check for it, there shouldn't be any headphones, because you don't have a phone, and there's no device out. So the best advice I could give, which I'm gonna work with guards on, is getting that little shoe rack, so they put their phone out. It's out of sight, they won't worry about touching it, dealing with it, and then you don't have to check for or deal with it.
My fear with that is that, whenever students are leaving, they're gonna take someone else's phone.
Doesn't happen.
Okay.
It does, I have done it, this is my 5th year doing it, and I've never had a kid take another kid's phone. The only one was Charlie, but he didn't bring his phone that day, so no one took it, he didn't bring it. So, I've never dealt with it, with a kid taking another kid's phone. But that's the thing too, is when you know that they're going to get their phones, it should be the bell ring, and you possibly could just be near it and watch it. But kids grab each other's phone and grab it for each other. I've never dealt with that. But that's the best advice I can give. While walking the hallways yesterday, it was like every classroom, there was a lot of stuff. And it could really be eliminated. So I'm gonna talk with the guards about that. Grade book. You should still be putting 2 grades in a week. If you only put 1 grade in 1 week and 3 the next week, that's fine. But at the end, you should pretty much have the same number as everybody else. Make sure you're marking projects, exams, classroom work differently. And the biggest thing is when you contact these parents and they wanna talk about grades, you have to be able to differentiate between a missing assignment and them getting a 0 on assignment. So if they never turn it in, make sure you're putting that M in for missing.
It still counts as a 0, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. And then if they turned it in and it's terrible, then put the 0.
At what point do you change it to a 0?
You don't ever have to.
Yeah, we don't, yeah.
I can change it into a 0 at the very end.
You don't have to.
I actually talked to a parent, well, through email yesterday, asking about, hey, what, do you always change an M to a 0? And I told the parent, yes, that's what I did, because he was kind of mad about a student getting a B, and they were like right at 89, and they just needed that one grade, but I said, too late, so.
And that is another thing I talked with Stuart, and this was something she wanted to stress. If a student failed the first cycle, did better in the second cycle, still didn't pass. If they've shown mastery or they show mastery the second semester, you can go back and change their grade. Are you required to? Absolutely not. But if you come to agreement with the student, which you should try to do as teachers, if you come to agreement and you're like, hey, if you get an 85 this semester, if you really try, if you turn everything in, you can go back and change that first semester.
Let me ask you this, if 85 average is about to pass, you don't have to worry about it, right?
Right,
Is it still saying, if you pass the second semester and an average with the first and it's an overall pass, they're good, they don't have to, okay.
Well, it's certain, so Algebra 1, if you fail that first semester, you gotta retake that first semester.
Even on this new policy? Okay.
Like I have a student in my second semester that she just came to my class now because she failed second semester Algebra 1.
Because they're saying that it's the building block, if you don't do it, you're gonna be screwed down.
They won't give you the full credit.
Alright.
I know middle school is a little different, right?
Just a couple of things, just make sure, like, the 89s, the 69s, like grades are real subjective, right? So, if you're gonna fail a kid, then they gotta be failed, okay? And, if you have an 89 and you wanna avoid, like, just conflict, you know, alright, great, character, okay, get them to a 90 or whatever, but, that, of course, that's your discretion, but that's just simple advice, just to make your life a little easier.
Especially with those 68, 69.
The goal is to have them, obviously, when they come in, we want them to be getting better as they go through the year, so same thing, if we need to go back, then that's fine too. And then additionally, if they're sped, right, then you need to make sure you're following all accommodations, if they have 504s, all that stuff. If you fail a spec ed kid and they go back and say, all right, what have you been doing, and you haven't been doing nothing, it's gonna look really bad. So, make sure that you know the accommodations, you know all that stuff, especially those students, all right? Cause, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that goes on with that stuff, so make sure that you have all that.
You good on grade book? Questions on?
Everybody knows their accommodations, their spec kids, their 504 kids.
You know how to find it?
Okay.
You know how to find it?
I do have a question. If we've gotten like a survey, I assume it's like an exploratory survey on a student that we have,
Mhm.
where they don't currently have a 504, but I assume that they are investigating if that's the route to go. What should we be doing in that case? Should we be treating them as such?
If they don't have anything in place right now, then
Okay.
you just regular.
Okay.
Now, my best practice for me, like what I do, I give extended time,
Yeah.
you know, extended due
Understood.
dates, you know, the kids that need to be in the front, you know, that
Yeah,
can be in the
yeah.
back. So, I mean, you should have all that stuff already in place.
Yeah.
So you can always say, hey, you know, we have this, I give them extra time to turn assignments in, you know, we do small group, we do scaffolding, you know, all that stuff, so. So your basis is always covered, so it's not a big deal.
Okay.
I have a question, because of the special need, part of it. I don't give out zeros at all, I give out 50s even if
That's
nothing ever
fine.
gets turned in for
Yeah.
all of my kids.
Yeah.
And then I still have kids that fail simply because things just
Yeah.
don't get turned in. So as long as I have documentation that they're getting printed notes, they get small group, they
Yeah.
get the whole semester to turn everything in.
My very first mentor teacher told me that, he never gave zeros, he was a math teacher.
Yeah,
He wouldn't give zeros, because if they in the first 6 weeks with a 30,
mhm,
that's a hole they're never gonna be able to get out of,
right.
right? And
I
so
mean,
that-
it's a zero when it's the M,
Yeah, so
but
they
if
can't,
nothing ever gets turned in, I change it.
you don't want them to ever lose hope that they can pass with you,
Right.
right, so.
Okay, but that's okay.
I don't know if y'all remember grade speed? Okay. I don't know if you can do this on the grade, but
Mhm.
I would put the 0,
Mhm.
you have that 0, and there's a second column, you can put the 50. So when a parent comes up and complains, I'd say, there's your child's grade. They
Okay.
had a 0, just so you know, I gave him 50 points. fine, so now I can go back and give them a 0 if you want, and we'll have another conversation. I let them know that I didn't want them to take 50. I let them know their original grade was a 0. I gave them a 50, so before you yell at me, you might want to see how
Yeah.
kind I'm being. And I had documentation on it, and they're like, oh, okay.
And you could do that with
That would probably
gradebook in the
How?
and with the comment section.
Yeah.
So let's say you put 50, in that comment section next to it, that little box, you can write exactly what's
Real
going on.
grade 0.
Yeah.
Missing
Okay.
assignment 0.
That's what that's what I would do.
And do the same thing with, I think it's next to their name, you can write a comment, so when they get that progress report, under your grade, it'll say whatever you put in that comment section. But with that, sometimes it's good to put good things too.
Yeah.
So if you get an amazing kid and you want,
Your child was absent.
it may be the only contact you ever have with that kid.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Y'all
was
know how to
there
pronounce the
some
mini
emails
Park Sports?
that include comments?
Yes.
On
The
random.
IPR reports.
No, but I know where that
It's that
drop
section.
down is, I'm just not.
Okay, so you can print out IPR.
If there's something that you feel.
Go to IPR, click for report, you'll click for this class, and you can print like 4 to a page, and they'll be like little squares, and they'll have their little fire reports. You can do that every 3 weeks, or 2 weeks, or end of the week if you have a lot of assignments. That way they know where they stand all the time. So, I do that usually like third weekend, or right before progress report, and then right before the other one, so. That way, and it'll show all their assignments, it'll show what grades they have, what they're missing, things like that, so. If you help with that, you can hook you up.
And then that's with parent contact too. If a kid is failing, let the parent know as soon as possible. If there's one assignment that goes in and makes that kid fail, if you have the time, talk to the parent. If you can't get email, try to give them a phone call. But with parent contacts, if you haven't had a crazy parent yet, congratulations. Because we've all had some. But with that crazy parent, make sure you're telling Stuart, Gomez, somebody, about what the parent's conversation is. You don't ever want that conversation to happen, make it ugly, they come in and you never told Stuart or you never told Gomez about it. So with the parent contact, if things go south, tell an administrator immediately. Cause a lot of times they'll contact the parent, so you don't have to deal with anything. Or they'll just be like, shut fun down, don't respond, but they'll give you advice on what to do with the crazy parents. Make sure you're keeping record of parent contact on that failure form. You don't wanna it be the end of the cycle and you're putting it in. As soon as you contact the parent, put it in the parent form. And then good contact. I know Ms. Clark does student of the week. If a student is technically the bad kid majority of the time, when they have a good week, let the parent know. So that way, every time you're contacting them, it's not negative.
Helps the home life.
Yeah. If all they hear is bad, it'll be bad. A good one every once in a while will be better. T-test.
T-tests, have y'all's windows open up for T-tests? I know at the junior high, they sent out some emails. How did admin contact y'all about T-test appraisals? No?
I just have my pre-conference.
Pre-conference, okay, so they should open up a window, usually a week, maybe 2 weeks. And that's your opportunity, to tell them, come to this class, just this period, on this day.